I think one of the most valuable things that any person can do is just always be learning, always be looking for something that they don't know, that they want to know, and figuring out how it works. And that really comes from a state of being alert to what's going on around you. It seems really weird, but oftentimes you can go through life kind of just coasting. And once you get a certain set of skills, you can kind of ride those for a while and you can get stuck in a rut and get really comfortable doing that stuff. And it almost takes this alertness of looking outside of your box, looking at what other people are doing and critically analyzing it to figure out, okay, well, what are they doing different? How do I get better, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, is for everyone to get better at what they're doing. And that can be really hard if you're comfortable where you're at. So what I like to do is, and you can't do it all the time because it's exhausting, right? But looking at what other people are doing, look at other creative works, whether it's a film, a TV show, a commercial, a music video, a photograph you see, a website has a specific layout or design, and figure out what it is that draws you to it. Because it's one thing to look at something and be like, oh, that's cool, I want to do something like that. But it's like, okay, well, what's cool about it? Is it the color scheme? Is it the fonts they're using? Is it the composition and the framing, the frame rate they're shooting with? There's so many different pieces of creative work, and to figure out what's cool about it, you really have to analyze it to figure it out. Oftentimes for me, it's lighting. I'll look at something and be like, oh, that looks great. What is it about it that I like? And it breaks down to the lighting is just really good. Or oftentimes it'll be the color grading. Someone did a really good job coloring it, and I want to, how did they do that? And sometimes you can't figure it out because maybe they don't have a tutorial, maybe they aren't expressing their, how their workflow and what they're doing, but you can find stuff like it and start looking at other examples. Maybe it's a specific genre that you're really into, like you want to get into documentary filmmaking. Well, look at documentaries that you like and what is it about them that you like, and then try and recreate that or imitate it. I made a video talking about copying the masters, and I think that's really important. One thing that happens with almost any creative work is the really good stuff isn't obvious, right? People look at it and they say, oh, that was nice, that was cool, but they don't look at what's making it that way. Where something that's really bad kind of hits you over the head with how bad it is, and you're like, oh, that lighting was terrible, or the acting was really bad, or the color was off, it was out of focus. Those things are really apparent because when all those problems are solved and you're seeing the best thing, it almost fades away and it's invisible, right? Like the best editors are ones you don't think about the editing, and you just get absorbed into what's happening. And that's the same case for anything. The best lighting people shouldn't be drawing attention to the lighting. They should just make something that people are like, wow, that looks really good. And then you have to take it that step further and critically analyze it. So I like to find stuff like that and then pursue like what it is about that I like, try and learn it. And usually in that process, it opens up like another path where you see something else that you didn't notice before, and then you can go down that rabbit hole, and then another path will branch off, and at a certain point you'll hit the end of it, but then you can find something new to pursue and go down that path. And what it ends up doing is you get all this input from all these different people, and you start copying and imitating and trying to figure out what they're doing, and then you adapt it for what you're doing. Maybe you have a smaller budget or not as big of a crew, and you have to make it work with what you're doing. And in doing that, you'll start figuring out ways to do it on your own and figuring out things that are your style and your way and your method. And if you do that long enough, eventually people start copying you. And what can happen at that point is you get back to that comfort zone, right? So you got to push yourself again to find something new and learn and grow. I think one of the best things that I ever did was I didn't just focus on one key thing where I was like, I want to be a really good camera op. Because you can be a good camera op, but I think being a good editor and being a good script writer and being a good director can make you a better camera op, because you also, and you're starting to see that bigger picture of all the different components at play, and you're learning each of these areas. It takes a lot longer because there's more to learn, but the more cross-pollination that goes on in that learning and that education, it kind of builds it all up. So you start, as you become better at coaching actors, that can make you a better editor because now you know like kind of what you're looking for and like what's good acting and what's bad acting. And then the better editor you become, the better director you can become, because then you know, okay, these are the shots we're getting, this is how I want it to flow in post-production. And so there definitely is a back and forth between all those different things, whether it's 3D modeling or Photoshop, photography, color grading. All of those things can play off of each other and really build you up creatively. And then if you spend enough time doing that, you'll get to that place where you're comfortable and you're coasting, and you got to push yourself again. So it's that constant cycle of realizing when you're too lazy in what you're doing and pushing yourself to that next level. I mean, it's very easy for me to go on a shoot and do an interview setup like this because I've done it so many different times in so many different ways. And usually I'll try and do something different, you know, on every shoot. Try something new and different that I haven't done before, and maybe it goes well and I say, oh, I'm going to incorporate that into what I'm doing for the future. Or maybe it goes really poorly and I say, okay, I'm never going to do that again. And it can be the smallest things, it can be the biggest things. It just depends, but you'll get in a rhythm and you'll get in a style of your own, and then you're comfortable and you're coasting and you just push it again.